A friend rotated every password the morning his freelancer finished. All of them weren't sitting and it felt like the responsible thing to do. That evening, her laptop was still signed into 2 of those accounts. Nobody did anything wrong. On most platforms, a password change does not end a session that already exists. The browser is holding a token. The token is still valid and the login screen never comes back. He only found out because she messaged him to say a notification had appeared on her machine. And did he want her to sign out? She was being decent about it. The version where nobody mentions it is the same event with the message removed. Why I take this one seriously. I run mobile proxy lines on real carrier SIMs and a rack of Android phones rented out as cloud phones. I do not operate large social fleets myself, my customers do, and I own the layer underneath theirs. What I do have is a couple of hundred SIMs, servers in a few locations, dashboards, a payment processor, a password vault, and people who have held pieces of that at different times. A contractor, a partner, somebody covering for a week. So this is a procedure I have run for real more than once and got wrong once in a way I still think about. The risk is almost never malice. Start with the framing because it decides how well you do everything after it. When people picture this, they picture an angry ex-helper logging in at 2 in the morning to burn something down. That does happen. It is rarely the version you get. The ordinary version is passive. A session left open on a personal laptop that gets sold or handed to a family member 8 months later. A password saved in a browser and synced quietly onto a phone. A number still sitting on an account and still receiving codes. A shared mailbox nobody changed, because it never belonged to one person in the first place. None of that needs anybody to make a decision. It sits there working for as long as you leave it, which is why treating the whole thing as a trust question gets you the wrong procedure. You are closing doors that are open whether or not anyone ever walks through them. What actually walks out the door? 4 things, and they fail in different ways. The live session is the first, and it is the one that survives the fix most people reach for. It lives in a browser profile, sometimes in an app on a phone, and it does not care that the password changed. The saved credential is the second, sitting in a browser, synced to an account you have no visibility into, still there when they set up their next machine next year. The phone is the third. If the number was ever the too far destination or a recovery contact, they can still receive the code that resets the account. The shared mailbox is the fourth and the worst of them because it belongs to nobody and is therefore nobody's job. If the person had the password to a support address or an operations inbox, they can still read everything that lands in it. Everything that lands in it includes reset links. Why the password change is the step everybody does? Because it is the one that feels like an action. Run button, a visible result and permission to tell yourself the matter is handled. It is also close to the least useful of the 5 steps when it stands alone. A password change protects you from a future login attempt. It does nothing about a session that already exists, nothing about a recovery contact, nothing about a mailbox they can still open, and nothing about a vote they still have a seat in. So people do the easy step, feel finished, and leave 3 doors open behind them. The order that actually works. Order matters here more than any individual step. And most write-ups have it backwards. First, terminate sessions and link to devices. Every platform with the feature calls it something slightly different. Active sessions, where you are signed in, devices, apps with access, find it and end everything you do not personally recognize. Do this before the password change rather than after. If you rotate first, a live session can sometimes be used to set the new password to something else again. And now you are locked out of your own account by somebody who was not even trying. Second, rotate the credentials. Now the password change means something, because there is no live session left to survive it. Do the APA keys and access tokens in the same pass, since those are credentials with a longer memory than passwords have. Third, pull the vault seat. If you shared access through a password manager, remove the person from the collection and read what the collection actually contained. Mine sit in Bitwarden, split so a contractor gets the 8 items their job needs. Removing them is one click, which is the entire reason for sharing it that way. Fourth, change the recovery contacts. I'm coming back to this one on its own. Fifth, and only now, audit what was accessed. Login history, device list, the sent folder of any mailbox they held, the change log on anything financial. It goes last because the first 4 steps stop the bleeding and this one only describes it. Recovery contacts are the permanent door. This is the step that leaves something open forever, and it is the step nobody remembers. A recovery contact is a phone number or an email address that a platform will accept as proof you own the account. It sits outside the password entirely. Rotating the password does not touch it. Ending sessions does not touch it. So if a contractor added their own number 6 months ago to get past a verification screen on a Wednesday afternoon, that number is still a live route into the account. And this stays live for exactly as long as it stays on the record. It also will not appear anywhere you would think to look. Not on a team page, not in the vault. It is in the account's own security settings, which nobody opens unless something has already gone wrong. So open them. Every account the person touched, one at a time, and read what is listed there instead of what you believe is listed there. The third account, here is the case that catches everybody, and no amount of security discipline touches it. It is a memory failure. Somebody had access to 3 accounts. You remember 2. You remember the 2 they worked on constantly, because that was the job. The third is the one you handed over on a Tuesday afternoon in their first month, because something needed doing and they were the person available. It never became part of the work, so it never became part of the story you tell yourself about what they did. That third account is not covered by anything you do on their last day, because you do not know it is there to cover, and you cannot fix this at the exit. At the exit, you are working from memory, and memory does not simply fade here, it edits. You remember the arrangement you meant to have. The record gets written on the way in, so the only thing that makes a departure survivable is a record you kept while the person was arriving. 1 line per grunt. The date, the person's name, the account or the system, and how the access was given. That is the whole format. It takes about 15 seconds at the moment you grant it, when every one of those fields is already in front of you. On the way out, you read the lines with that name on them, and you have your list. No recall, no reconstruction, no wondering whether there was a fourth thing. I have covered the account record itself elsewhere on this channel and I am not redoing it here. The part that matters today is that the access field holds a person's name and the date, not a job title. Somebody left is a fact you can act on. The assistant is not. Then add the leaving date when it arrives. What got rotated, what got removed, and when. If you cannot answer that for somebody who left half a year ago, they still have access and you are guessing at how much. What I got wrong. A contractor of mine finished a piece of work and I did the tidy version of this. Rotated the passwords, removed the vault seat, closed the shared documents, felt organized about the whole thing. About 5 months later, I was in the security settings of one of those accounts for a completely unrelated reason. And there was a phone number listed as a recovery contact that was not mine. It had been added during the work, for a sensible reason, on a day when a verification screen was blocking something, and the fastest way past it was the number of the person sitting in front of the screen. Nothing came of it. I am not telling this as a near miss, because as far as I can tell, nothing happened at all. What bothers me is the 5 months. For 5 months, there was a live route into that account, belonging to somebody with no remaining relationship to my business. And the only reason I ever found it was an accident. I had done 4 of the 5 steps and told myself the job was done. The one I skipped was the only one that was permanent. Now the recovery contacts get read on every account in the list, and the check gets a date written next to it so I can prove to myself later that it happened. The part that is actually awkward, here is the real reason people do this badly, and it has nothing to do with technique. It feels like an accusation. Somebody leaves on good terms, you liked working with them, and the first thing you do is strip everything they had within the hour. It feels like announcing that you expect to be robbed. So people delay, they do it next week, or they do half of it, or they do it quietly and hope nobody notices, which is the worst option because half a procedure looks identical to a whole one from the outside. The fix is one sentence, and you say it at the beginning rather than the end. When somebody gets access, tell them how it ends. Same procedure for everybody, it runs on the last day, it takes about 20 minutes, and it is standard. I say a version of that whenever I grant anything now, and it has never once landed badly. Once the procedure has been announced in advance, running it fast on the last day is just you doing the thing you already said you would do. The person leaving usually helps, because they would rather not be holding keys to a business they no longer work for either. The honest limit, none of this makes an account safe, and it was never meant to. It closes one specific category of routing, the one that opens every single time a person stops working with you. The account still carries every other exposure it had yesterday. But this is the category where being thorough costs 20 minutes and being sloppy costs you a door that stays open until somebody stumbles across it. 5 months in my case, and only by luck. Everything is at multiaccountops.com. Subscribe for more on running many accounts cleanly.